Come on in, pull up a chair, and take a load off, because today I'll be paging through and reviewing Rackham Vale from Crowbar Creative. Is this sandbox a perfect addition to the collections of fans of the old school Renaissance? Or is Rackham Vale far mustier than the 100-year-old images it's inspired by? Well, you're going to find out right after this. Howdy, 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 gang. Welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang channel. Happy holidays as well. Yes, it is the winter holiday season 2021 as I record this. As I mentioned in the open, today I am going to be reviewing Rackham Vale from Crowbar Creative. It's written by Brian Saliba and Craig Schaefer, with artwork provided by the legendary Arthur Rackham. You can score the 152-page softcover book for $25. You can get the book and the art cards together for $60. Or you can just snag the PDF alone over at Drive-Thru RPG for $7. Do want to mention, as I record this, there is currently a sale going on at the Crowbar Creative website. You can get the book and the art cards together for $40, the softcover book for $17.50, or the PDF for just $4.90. You want to mention, I have no idea how long the sale is going to last, and you have to go to the Crowbar website to take advantage of those sale prices. That said, let's swing on over to the other camera, because here I've got Rackham Vale, fantasy adventure from the art of Arthur Rackham. So Arthur Rackham's very famous. He provided a lot of illustration for British fantasy books about 100 years ago. Everything within this volume is inspired by his artwork. There are over 100 images included as well. Before we dive in, a few things that I do want to mention. If you want to get a much closer look at the book, as well as the art cards, by all means, check out my first look video, which was on October 20th as part of my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch. I paged through the book. We take a look at all the art cards and kind of discuss what they look like. It was a first look. I had not cracked this book open at that point in time. I am going to share some pages from within this book and show you some of the art cards as well. But I'm not going to look through every single page. That said, the fine folks over at Crowbar Creative did provide me with this review copy, but neither I nor anyone else affiliated with the Gaming Gang has received any other sort of compensation for me to share my thoughts about this with you. These days, it's very important that you know that. I'm also going to stay up here picture in picture, so I'm probably going to cut off a little bit of the upper left of this book as we take a peek. Let's jump on in, because we're going to start off with a bit of an introduction and kind of a checklist for game masters who are planning on utilizing Rackham Vale. Should mention, this is not an adventure. This is not a plotted adventure. This is a setting with a lot of really excellent locales and NPCs and bestiary entries, but it is not all plotted out. It is not a railroad, I guess we'll say. This is also not a hex crawl either. So we have our map. This is the little map that comes with the book itself. Give you a little closer look at that. And it shows the various different locations in the Vale. But as you can see, this is not a hex map. This is not a hex crawl. So again, like I said, a little bit of an introduction. This is considered to be a zine. Not in my book. This is a book. I don't know what the fascination with everything being called zines are nowadays. This was part of Zine Quest. This is not a zine. This is not a magazine. This is a book. This is a digest-sized book. But nonetheless, it is a book. So we're going to have a variety of different entries for different locales in Rackham Vale. So we're going to get an image that inspired that entry. So as an example, we've got the Golden River. So there's the Golden River running behind. This looks like a fae character here, or possibly a mermaid because of the fins down here. So we're going to get a little bit of flavor text. Then we're going to find out, okay, so what is it about this that would make it interesting, right? So who lives there? What is this? What's interesting about this? And we'll have bullet points. So this book does not get bogged down in a lot of flavor text and a lot of information that the game master running this needs to dig through. So the way this is presented is really nicely formatted so you can utilize this relatively easy at the gaming table. That said, just because it's bullet points doesn't mean that it's just very abrupt. There's a lot of good information in here and a lot of interesting nuggets to really get the game master's imagination going, to get those imaginative juices flowing. So most of these locales will get a page, maybe 2 pages, especially if we've got some random tables, which there are quite a few different random tables in here. One aspect of the Golden River is it's actually poisoned with mercury because of the mining consortium that's located in the Vale, which is an interesting faction to utilize. Another example, we've got the Vale High Road. So a cobbled thoroughfare of Rackham Vale, which follows roughly the southwesterly course of the Golden River. What is here? Merchants and mercenaries, herbalists and highwaymen, opportunists and outlaws. So essentially what they're saying is anybody and everyone is there. Those who keep moving on sections of the road within 30 feet of the Golden River, are usually attacked by the Leviathan, who's a giant monster who lives within the river, who actually used to be an alligator and would like to just go back to being an alligator. More on that later. Those lingering in such areas, however, have a 2 in 10 chance per turn of drawing its attention, +1 for every medium-sized fae or mythological creature present. What's interesting about the Vale High Road? It's paved with headstones. Indeed, the road itself is the cemetery of the Vale. Important folk are honored with brass-plated headstones, which erode less quickly, resulting in cart jostles and toe stubbings. Travelers are advised to tread carefully, as kicking or stumbling on a headstone is said to disturb the spirit resting below. Lots of beware, voracious river monster, trotting recommended signs where the road hews close to the river. And then we get a breakdown of some high road encounters and the motivations of those creatures and NPCs that the player characters might happen to encounter. Got it right down there. And essentially what you do is normally you're going to roll for what the random encounter is and then roll again for the motivation. And that's kind of how these locations break down. I really love how many of these locales are tied into another locale or NPCs. And we even will actually have a breakdown of how the factions connect. Kind of give you an idea of these. The Alchemist's Tower. There's another NPC in here that's pretty interesting, and that is the Toad Prince, who is a prince who was turned into a toad, who actually enjoyed being a toad and wants to go back to being a toad. So, if magic users utilize magic anywhere in the Vale. And if it's powerful magic, he's going to pay them a visit. So I'll kind of give you an idea of the various different locations. Here's the breakdown of the factions. Then we get some adventure hooks. So we get adventure hooks about each and every location and NPC. Just reading the entries alone should give you some ideas of some adventure hooks to utilize as well. And then we get into the bestiary, where off the top of my head, I think there's 24 entries in the bestiary. So here's a great example of a pretty cool NPC, and it's the Damsel of Distress. And she's an incorporeal being who essentially just wants to lure travelers to their doom by making them think that she is a damsel in distress. And she also happens to tie into the Leviathan a little bit because she tends to lure travelers into the river to drown, which also provides food for the Leviathan, or travelers for the Leviathan to attack. So we get a little breakdown of how to role play this NPC. Who is she? What is she doing? What is she like? So for an example, she likes causing strife and discord, especially between close acquaintances. What she hates: agreement, carefully laid plans, fae folk who are immune to her illusions and find her amusing. What she wants: you to come and rescue her and die in the trying. Her allies, the Leviathan, a frequent beneficiary of her tricks, can often be found nearby. And then her enemies: she hates fae folk, but they love her, sort of, inasmuch as theater goers love playhouses. A few village elders and sages know about her, but don't like to discuss her, as doing so only seems to send more good folk into her trap. And of course, we're going to get a stat block for each as well. So her charm is basically to cast this illusion, and the player characters have to make a save against it. If they're successful, they see nothing out of the ordinary. If they're unsuccessful, then they see the damsel in some form of distress. And then we've got a random table on the back. We're going to roll to see, okay, what's going on with her. So for an example, unconscious and bleeding, tied up, gagged, and terrified. Roll again. Who's she being threatened by? And you roll again, and nearby there lurks. Could be nothing. Could be the Leviathan. The Leviathan's got a few entries here as well. And that's kind of the breakdown of the bestiary. We have the Duppy Caps, which kind of will play what seems to me a major role in the Vale, because they're magical mushrooms that give, if you eat them, they give you a power for a limited amount of time, but they're very, very addictive. And you can turn into a Duppy husk, which is effectively a burnt out addict, which the mining consortium is using as slave labor. Like I said, a lot of these NPCs and locations and things like that all tie together in some sort of way. And I think that the folks over at Crowbar Creative have done a fantastic job of tying all this stuff together. I think it's a blast. I think people are going to have a really good time with this setting book. Now, got to mention a couple of things. First off, well, it's probably just my old eyes, but the font is a little small. And in some areas of the book, you really have to open the book up to see everything. There's not enough. See, for an example like this, I have to really kind of open this up so I can read all of this along here. It's just a binding issue. That's all. I believe the book should hold up to a lot of use. But then again, if you need to kind of keep stretching it open like that, that is going to put some extra wear and tear on the book itself. I really think that this is a lot of fun. And this kind of has a dark fairy tale vibe to it, kind of like a Brothers Grimm vibe. It is not grim dark by any stretch, but I could see this also really fitting in well with Old School Essentials, which this is statted for, which essentially is BX. So you can port this over to just about any fantasy role-playing game, be it OSR or newer, more modern takes as well. But I think this will fit in really nicely with Dolemwood, which I don't think the core setting book has come out yet. But I know that's something that we've gotten a few like minor releases to kind of give us a good feel for it. It's got kind of a fairy tale vibe to it. Winter's Daughter is an adventure that's set in Dolemwood. That's a very popular OSE adventure module. So I think this would fit in really nicely with that setting as well. Kind of give you an idea of the art cards. Once again, this is that map that comes with it. I'm not going to show off all the art cards, but I do want to give you a feel for these art cards. They're full color. The book itself is not. The book is in black and white. I do believe that the PDF is full color, so the reproduction of the artwork will be like this in the PDF. So essentially, we're going to have a lot of the images, not every image, but a lot of the images from the book as well as the entry. So these are weather vanes. Again, this is the breakdown that we saw in the book itself. There's our stat block. So the game master can share these images with the players. So as an example, the Serpentangle. And we've got a lot of info packed on the back of this card. I like these art cards a lot. Let's see where the toad print is. Oh, here we go. Here's something cool. So we've got the Veiled Giants. This is a Veiled Giant. And they are cousins to hill giants, but they are actually friendly. The Veiled Giants are friendly and very helpful, and they only eat 3 times a year. They have these huge feasts 3 times a year, and if they come knocking on your door asking you to provide food for their feast, you better be providing some food. And it goes into all that detail right here. But very interesting NPCs. We also have the toad prince. Find the toad prince in here. Who is a prince who was turned into a toad by a witch and actually really enjoyed being a toad. So they wanted to return to being a toad, and they can detect, there's the Leviathan, the river monster. They can detect magic. So if the player characters, is there not a card for the Toad Prince? I thought there was. Well, anyway. If the player characters cast magical spells, there's a chance, depending on how powerful the spell is, that the Toad Prince is going to be able to detect it, and then they're going to pay a visit to the player characters. And it's a very interesting NPC. So I've tried not to provide too many spoilers because there's a lot of stuff jam-packed into this book. But like I said, some of the NPCs in that are very, very interesting, and I like how they tie together as well. All right, so that is Rackham Vale as well as the art cards. Swing on over to the other camera for me to provide some final thoughts as well as a review score. I really like Rackham Vale. I think this is really, really well done. I can see why it was so highly regarded as part of Zine Quest. I think it was Zine Quest 3 on Kickstarter. It was part of. Once again, it's not a zine, it's a book. It's a digest-sized book, but I get it. That's, it's a role-playing thing now, especially OSR. Like, they like to refer to some of these releases as zines. This is jam-packed with cool settings and NPCs. This is a location that really comes to life. It's got, it lives and breathes, as opposed to a lot of different setting books that we might run across that feel kind of bland, kind of, been there, seen that. Not with Rackham Vale. It's loaded with illustrations from the famed illustrator Arthur Rackham as well, and very easily used at the gaming table with bullet points without getting, just overflowing with flavor text. Although those bullet points are jam-packed with info as well. The art cards are very cool too. I think that these could be very useful at the game table as well. Right now, because there is that sale going on, it's a smashing deal to get the book and the art cards for $40. Only problems I've got with the book itself is I felt that the font is a little small and that we could have seen some more empty space so that we don't have to crack the book open so wide in order to, it's not every page, but there are quite a few pages that are like that. So I think you're going to put a little bit more wear and tear on it than you should. But all in all, I think it is an excellent addition to anybody's gaming collection, any game master's collection, as far as fantasy role-playing games that have a fairy tale sort of vibe going on to them. On a scale of 0 to 10, I give Rackham Vale a very solid 9 out of 10. It is that good. All right. That is it for this time out. If you like this video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do, ding that bell. It'll not only let you know when I upload videos such as this review, but also tell you when my live stream, the Gaming Gang Dispatch, airs Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday nights on YouTube at 7 p.m. Central as I bring you the latest in tabletop gaming news and first looks at tabletop games. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more. You know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for watching. And until I see you next time, here's hoping you get to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang. Oh, you're still here. Well, while you're kicking it, how about subscribing to the Gaming Gang channel? Or seeing the latest episode of the Gaming Gang Dispatch? Or finding out what YouTube recommends you check out here at my channel? And of course, don't forget, get your geek on at thegaminggang.com.